In today's lesson, we're going to be talking about climate classifications and how um, climates are classified and what goes into that decision making. Most of the way that we look at climates today was actually developed and made into this what's called the Köppen classification system. And that was created by Vladimir Köppen. And his original classification of climates, that means like the whole region and the weather that affects it, like past, present, and future. He actually first classified climates mainly based on the plants and vegetation that were there. Obviously, that can not be that accurate, basing it off of plants, and you have so many different types of plants around the world that he later revised this to include more concrete information like temperature and precipitation. So, how much rain, snow, hail, etc., falls in the area. And so now this classification system is used to define climates. And we're going to stay on this picture for quite a while today, while I go over some basics about these different climates. So we will look at first the tropical climates. So there's two types of tropical climates. There's the orange of tropical wet and the yellow in tropical dry. So if you look for orange and yellow here, you see them on the map, and you see them kind of in certain places on the map. Like you don't see a whole lot of orange and yellow or any up here or down too low. You see it right here. And what line is right here that you see the tropical climates? This is the equator, and you'll see tropical climates just north and just south of the equator. And these tropical climates, as you can expect, there's two types. The tropical wet, that is going to be warm and wet year round. And then there's the tropical wet dry, where it is warm, but it has a rainy and a dry season. And you'll see this, and you can think of it, as like Africa, how you have these mass migrations of animals. They're really following where there's space and where there's moisture to water the plants and have things grow. So you're going to have mass migrations of animals here, and people have to really alter the way they live based on that water. Then we're going to talk about dry climates. In dry climates, they are the two different tan colors, okay? And you'll see those here and here on the map. So just north and south of the tropical climates, and those are going to be very desert-like, very arid areas, some plants and some not. There's going to be some semi-arid and some fully dry. This is actually sort of semi-arid. You can have some full deserts with almost no plants available. And here's a very arid picture of Australia. So that's what you'll see there. Not a lot of rain. Then the next type of climate that we're going to talk about are the mild climates. Mild climates are in the greens, and I wish they wouldn't have put this one a green as well. But you'll see these in the greens. Here in Southern California, they actually have some pink around us, but there's a tiny little part of the arids that I want to point out, the semi-arid color, and that's basically where we're at. The green is the mild climates, the Mediterranean, the humid subtropical, and the marine west coast. So in these spaces, you're going to have warmer weather, kind of year round. It's going to have mild winters and more mild summers, and it depends on which one of these you are in. But this area too will have very extreme weather at times. So you have to kind of watch for that. Like it can have, some very snowy things and some very hot times as well. So it's not like this is free from that at all. Um, and you can see different greens across the globe, and you can see that they are actually just tend to be above and below those like arid desert regions. The next one is the continental climates. This is the light green, blue, purple. And in these spaces, we talked about back last section that there can be these different like air masses moving through. And because the different air masses move through, it seems like when a cold air mass from the north hits a warm air mass from the south, it seems like they should just mix and make a nice middle air mass. But they don't mix very well. They have totally different densities, and because of that, there tends to be some violent um, clashes here of weather as well. So you can have tornadoes, you can have thunderstorms, a lot of rain. So it just depends. So that's the continental climates. They tend to have warmer summers or warmer summers a lot of times. Some of them have cool summers. You can see that here in the lighter, like this tealy color, um, and it kind of depends what it's going to be like. Then there's the polar areas. The polars regions have three, which are the full ice caps. It's just fully ice. And then it also has the tundra areas, and the tundra areas are where it the ground slightly thaws in the summer, but not very deep. So you don't get very many deep rooted trees or anything like that. They tend to be more shallow plants. And then you also have the highlands, and highlands are unique areas where you have these sort of frozenish areas, and only because it's on a high land. It's on a mountain range. It's up very high. So we actually have some of this in our Sierras in California. So just because it's up so high, it tends to stay more frozen. So, in addition to these like world climates that are very general, and this is like, you'd really have to zoom in on that map to see where your area was. You have these other things called microclimates, and microclimates are basically small patches where things vary widely just because of some kind of unique condition that's right there. If you've ever driven out towards Palm Springs, you have a ton of wind that goes through the mountains right there, which is why they have large wind turbines and you know, f- basically generating a bunch of power from the wind that's right there. Also out in the desert, so I used to live in like the Palm Springs, La Quinta area. There were the Cahuilla Indians. And I knew that the Cahuilla Indians had lived there, and I thought, how on earth did these people survive? When I lived out in that desert, there were some summers that we were weeks and weeks and weeks in the high 120s, and sometimes that we went into the 130s temperature wise. I didn't know how it was possible for anybody without air conditioning to really survive that. Well, as I got to know more about the way that the Cahuilla Indians like lived their lives, I found out that they actually went up into the mountains, in the nearby mountains where you see the Palm Springs aerial tramway. Maybe some of you guys have like gone on this before. It's really fun. And down here is the desert floor, and up here, I think it's like 8,500 feet. Did it say? Yeah, 8,500 feet. Um, are these it's way up there, and here you can see the daily temperature today is 55, whereas on the desert floor in Palm Springs it is 85. It's literally 30 degrees cooler at the top of the mountain. That is a microclimate. That's a microclimate. And those Indians actually would have a whole like pathway, like several of them trails that in the hot part of the summer, they would go take advantage of that and live up in the mountains that were 30 to 40 degrees cooler than the ground. So when I'm down there living at like 120 degrees, for them up in the mountains it would be about 80 degrees. Okay, so a lot more tolerable of a temperature. So the Kauai Indians totally took advantage of those microclimates, and I'm sure like changing animals and plants that they would rely on based on the season, which was it's just really cool. Um, so then heat islands. Heat islands are things that we have made. It's a very man-made thing. It's kind of weird, but it's where we've laid down a ton of concrete or buildings, etc., that make it really hot in a certain place when it wouldn't otherwise be that hot. So you guys know this when you guys have run barefoot out onto the street, right? In the middle of the summer and you burn your feet. You're not the only ones affected by that. Animals are also affected by that. Plants are affected by that. They have a much harder time growing with that intense heat. And so one of the things that's also been looked at is the solar field. So they have made some giant areas where they have put up, like a football field or several football fields worth of solar panels all in one place. And they've actually seen birds that fly over those solar panels. And because of all of the burning hot heat that is coming off those solar panels, the bird doesn't know when it starts to fly over, but then it will die on the way because it can't get out of that intense heat radiating off of those solar panels. So they've found a number of dead animals as that have passed over the solar panels. So, do we look at that and say, well, we're not going to use solar panels anymore? I don't really think that's the solution, but like on my own house, I know that my roof is kind of a heat island, a little bit of a heat island as it is. So then I put the solar panels on my roof, and so I'm not having any further impact, and I also don't have to use, electricity. So it's kind of being like smart about how we plan these things. So these are all problems that, we didn't expect, but you guys as the younger generation can look at those things and all think about, the mistakes that have been made, the good things that we've done, and then just take that information and go further to how can we build something even smarter. But anyways, those are heat islands, and here's some pictures of heat islands which are really interesting to me. These are two thermal energy or images. This one is one that is very city based, so it is very urban, and this is very like country based, so it is suburban. So you can see here that near the roads the temperature is like in that 100-degree, um because it's just concrete, right? So it's just radiating tons of heat, and you can almost see where the roads are on this map. And this one, the roads are everywhere. And so there's no place to get out of this heat island really. But you can see this like neighboring suburb here. There's some areas where it's, somewhere about 65 degrees. There are some areas that it's in the 50s, same day. It's the same day. But here it's in the 50s and here it's over 100 just because of the road. So it's interesting to see these thermal images taken from above and how microclimates work. All right, so good luck on this information and learn more about climates. Take care and have a great week.